Namo tassa bhagavato arahato samma sambuddhassa. Namo tassa bhagavato arahato samma sambuddhassa. Namo tassa bhagavato arahato samma sambuddhassa. Thiruvan Saranai. Good evening, Venerable Mahasangha, Sales, and brothers and sisters in the Dhamma. Today we will be talking further on the Āsavagocchakaṃ, the third part, and we will be talking on the remaining Dukkha Matika belonging to the Āsavagocchakaṃ. Now there are a few more details that we need to discuss from the commentaries and the sub-commentaries. However, today we will first complete the Dukkha Matika, and during the next lesson we'll continue with the commentary and sub-commentary descriptions. So today we will go through these couplets of the Āsavagocchakaṃ. Coming back to Āsavadhamma, states that are intoxicants or taints. So as we mentioned before, there are four asavas. Kāmasava, intoxicant of sensual desire. Bhavasava, intoxicant of attachment to existence. These two corresponds to the lobha cetasika, greed, mental factor. Then we have ditthāsava, intoxicant of wrong views, which is the ditti, wrong view, mental factor. And finally, avijjāsavo, intoxicant of ignorance, which is moha or ignorance, mental factor. So these dhammas, lobha, ditti and moha, these are all mental factors and they fall under one aggregate, which is the sankhara kanda, mental factors aggregate. One base, dhammayatana, one element, dhammadhatu, and two noble truths, arya satcha. And these noble truths are ditti and moha falls under dukkha satcha, and lobha is classified as samudaya satcha. Now we come to no asava dhammas, states that are not intoxicants. So here what we get is, we get all the analytical states except for the three lobha, ditti, moha, cetasika. So here we get 28 rupa, matter, 21 kusala, wholesome consciousness, the 12 akusala, unwholesomes, 36 vipaka, resultants, 20 functionals, kriya, and 49 cetasika, excluding lobha, ditti, and moha. And finally, nibbana. Now these dhammas are classified under 5 aggregates, khandha. Now remember, because there's nibbana here and nibbana is not classified under the 5 aggregates, we need to keep that in mind, that nibbana is outside the scope of the aggregates. Then we get 12 bases, ayatana, 18 dhatu, and 3 noble truths, arya satcha. And why are there only 3? It's because when we deducted the 3 mental factors, the asavas, lobha was also deducted, and lobha is samudaya satcha. So here we don't get samudaya satcha. Now we move on to the second dukkha matika, sāsava dukkha, and the first term, sāsava dhamma, states that have intoxicants. Now this is the Atthasālinī description. The co-intoxicant states, Āsava Dhamma, are those which occur together with the arisen intoxicants with themselves, intoxicants as objects. Now, what does this mean? So first we'll think of what asavas are. Now, asavas are mental factors, and mental factors cannot arise on their own. They arise with a corresponding chitta and cetasika. So now, if you consider chitta cetasika, how do they arise? Can they arise independently? Again, the answer is no. Chitta and cetasika depends on an ārambana, a sense object, in order for it to arise. So no chitta cetasika can arise without an object. So that is why these chitta cetasika are likened to an old person. Now if you think of an old man who is finding it difficult to walk, he would take a walking stick, and with the help of the walking stick only, he will be able to walk. Likewise, these chitta chetasika cling on to arammana in order to exist, in order to arise and exist. So these sāsava dhamma, how we need to understand is that these asavas cling on to these sāsava dhammas as objects. So the dhammas that basically coexist with these asavas as objects are the sāsava dhamma. So what we basically get are all the mundane dhammas, because the asava take mundane objects as their sense object. Now let's look at the Nikkepa Khanda, the summary section description of Sāsava Dhamma. Katame Dhamma Sāsava, which are the states that have intoxicants. Kusala, wholesome, akusala, unwholesome, abhyakata, indeterminate Dhamma states. Kāmāvachara, Rūpāvachara, Arūpāvachara, belonging to the sense sphere, fine material sphere, and immaterial sphere. In other words, what this sentence means is that these dhammas are all the mundane dhammas that they have described here. Rūpakkando Peyalam Viññānakkando, that means the 5 aggregates. Ime Dhamma Sāsava, these are the states that have intoxicants.
那现在我们来看法集概要章里面的解说，哪一些是俱漏法呢？欲界、色界、无色界的善法、不善法以及无记法。那所以这边呢是什么意思呢？就是说呢，这些都是属于世间法，因为我们只有看到呢，这边只有欲界、色界跟无色界，所以呢都是属于世间法。换句话说呢，这些也包含了色蕴、受蕴、想蕴、行蕴跟识蕴5种蕴。那这一些呢是属于俱漏法。
Now we look at the Atthasālinī, the commentary chapter description. Katame Dhamma Sāsava, which are the states that have intoxicants? Tisubhumisu Kusala, the wholesome states of the 3 planes of existence. So the 3 mundane planes. Akusala, unwholesome states. Tisubhumisu Vipako, resultants of the 3 planes of existence. Again, the 3 mundane planes. Tisu bhumisu kiriyabhyakata, functional indeterminates of the 3 planes of existence. Sabbancha rupam, and all matter. Ime dhamma sāsava, these are the states that have intoxicants. So what we get as analytical states of sāsava dhamma are all mundane states. Now, if you recall, when we were talking about the ārammana-thikas, the akusala dhamma, we spoke about the arammana of akusala dhamma, and these are all the mundane dhammas. We mentioned that the lokuttara dhamma are not taken as objects objects by the akusala dhamma. So here, when it comes to the asavas are also akusala. So these akusala dhamma cannot take the lokuttara dhamma as their objects. So what we get here are the 28 rupa matter, 17 mundane wholesome consciousness kusala, the 12 akusala, 32 mundane resultants vipaka, 20 functional kriya, and 52 mental factors. So see, we have removed the 8 lokuttara chitta and nibbana from the analytical states here. Now these dhammas are classified under 5 aggregates, khanda, 12 ayatana, 18 dhatu, and only 2 noble truths, because we get only dukkha satcha and samudaya satcha. We don't get the magga satcha and nirodha satcha. Now we move on to the second term, Āsava Dhamma, states that do not have intoxicants. Those which have no intoxicants as objects are non-intoxicant, anasava dhamma. So in other words, these are the dhammas that are not taken as objects by the asavas. Now let's look at the Nikkepakandan summary section description. Katame dhamma anasava, which are the states that do not have intoxicants. Apariyapanna magga cha magga phalani cha. And the paths that are unincluded and the fruits of the paths. So here we get the 4 magga and the 4 phala together with their associated mental factors. Asaṅkataca dhatu and the unconditioned element. Ime dhamma anasava. These are the states that do not have intoxicants. Now the commentary chapter, Atthasālinī description. Katame dhamma anasava, which are the states that do not have intoxicants. Chattaro magga apariyapanna, chattari cha samanya phalani. The 4 paths and the unincluded, the 4 paths that are unincluded and the 4 fruits of the life of a recluse. Again, it's the same thing, the 4 magga and the 4 phala. Nibbānancha and the state of final deliverance. Ime dhamma anasava. These are the states that do not have intoxicants. Here we get all lokuttara dhamma as analytical states. We get the 8 supramundane consciousness, the 4 magga and the 4 phala, together with the 36 mental factors, cetasika, and the state of final deliverance, nibbāna. And they are classified under 4 aggregates because now we have only Nama Dhamma here. Rupa Kanda is not there. We get the remaining. And again, since we have Nibbana, we need to note that Nibbana is outside the scope of aggregates. And then these are classified under 2 ayatana, 2 dhatu, and 2 noble truths, Arya Satya. And these are the 2 lokuttara Arya Satya, that is Magga Satya and Nirodha Satya. Again, we need to make note of the 4 Magga and 28 Cetasika, the 4 Phala and 36 Cetasika. These are outside the scope of the 4 noble truths. We now move on to the 3rd dukkha, Āsava sampayutta dukkha. Āsava sampayutta dhamma, states associated with intoxicants. We'll first look at the Nikkepakandan, the summary description. Katame dhamma āsava sampayutta, which are the states associated with intoxicants. Tehi dhammehi ye dhamma sampayutta, vedanakkando Peyala Vijnana Kando. The states, the 4 aggregates which have as their concomitants those states enumerated above as intoxicants. Now, what does this mean? Āsava sampayutta, we have to think in the same way that we took hetu sampayutta under Āsavagocchakaṃ. So, we need to look at the dhammas that arise together with the asavas. That's what asava sampayutta means. So that means they take the same object, they arise together with the asavas, and they persist together with the asavas, and then finally they disappear at the same time. So they are always existing together with the asavas. Those are the asava sampayutta dhamma. Ime dhamma āsava sampayutta. These are the states associated with intoxicants. In other words, āsava sampayutta means that the dhammas that are mixed, basically mixed with these asavas. They coexist together with the asavas. And now the Atthasālinī description. Katame dhamma āsava sampayutta, which are the states associated with intoxicants. Dve domanassa sahagata chittuppada ettuppanna moha tapetva. Excluding ignorance arising together with the 2 risings of consciousness accompanied by displeasure, there's a part missing here. The two domanasa sahagata chittuppada. That means we're talking about the two consciousness that is accompanied by dosa, aversion. So these two chitta and their chetasika, but excluding moha that arises with it. Now, why are we excluding this moha? Now, if you go back to the asavas, what are the asavas? We have kāmasava, bhavasava, that is lobha. Then we have ditthasava, which is ditti, and mohasava, avijjasava, which is moha. Moha arises in all 12 akusala chitta. And among these 12 chitta, we have the two dosa chitta as well. Now, these dosa chitta have got only one asava, only moha, because lobha doesn't arise with the dosa chitta, ditti does not arise with the dosa chitta. So they have only one asava. So when it comes to asava sampayutta dhamma, if you consider that moha chetasika, that moha does not have another asava to be associated with it. So when it comes to the two dosa chitta, the moha in those two dosa chitta doesn't have another asava to be associated. So that is why this phrase is given as ettuppanna mohang tapetva, excluding ignorance arising together with the two risings of consciousness accompanied by displeasure. So the remaining dhammas are asava sampayutta. Vichikicha sahagatam uddacha sahagatam mohang tapetva, excluding ignorance accompanied by doubt and restlessness. Again, we are talking about what? We are talking about the two moha mula chitta. When you consider the two moha mula chitta, each of these chitta has only one asava, only moha. Then that moha also does not have another asava to be associated with it. So they can't be called asava sampayutta. They are asavas, but they are not asava sampayutta. So we need to exclude those two as well. Avasesam akusalam, the remaining unwholesome states. That means the remaining 12 akusala chitta, the 27 chetasika, excluding what we mentioned above. Ime dhamma asava sampayutta. These are the states associated with intoxicants. So what we get as analytical states are the 12 akusala unwholesome consciousness together with 27 mental factors, chetasika, excluding moha, ignorance, arising together with the two dosa chitta and the two moha chitta. Now, you might wonder, if we are removing moha, why is it still 27 mental factors? That is because the moha belonging to, or the moha arising together with the 8 lobha mula chitta are still included within these 27 mental factors. That is why we can't completely remove the moha chetasika. Only part of the moha chetasika is being taken out of the 27 mental factors. So these dhammas are classified under 4 aggregates, the 4 nama kanda, 2 bases, that's manayatana, dhammayatana, 2 elements, mano viññāna dhatu and dhamma dhatu, and 2 noble truths. So the lobha chetasika is classified under samudaya satcha, the 12 akusala, and the remaining 26 chetasika are classified under dukkha satcha. Now we move on to the next term, Āsava Vippayutta Dhamma, states dissociated from intoxicants, the Nikkepa Khandam, the summary section. Katame Dhamma Āsava Vippayutta, which are the states dissociated from intoxicants. Tehi Dhammehi Ye Dhamma Vippayutta Vedanakkhando Peyalam Viññānakkhandho. The states, the 4 aggregates, which do not have as their concomitants those states enumerated above as intoxicants. Sabbancha Rupang and all matter, Asankatacha Dhatu and the unconditioned element, Ime Dhamma Āsava Vipayutta. These are the states dissociated from intoxicants. So here basically we are taking the Dhammas that do not exist together or together with the Āsava. So here we get the Rupa, the Nama Dhamma, that is the Chitta Chetasika Dhamma that are not mixed or mixed with the Āsavas, as well as Nibbana. And now the Atthasālinī commentary chapter description. Katame Dhamma Āsava Vipayutta, which are the states dissociated from intoxicants. Dvisu domanasa sagatesu chittupadesu uppanno moho. The ignorance arising together with the two risings of consciousness accompanied by displeasure. Vichikiccha sahagato moho, ignorance accompanied by doubt. Uddacha sahagato moho, ignorance accompanied by restlessness. Now, what does that mean? Now, we are talking about the Dhammas that are not mixed with Asavas, the Asava Vipayutta Dhamma. And first, what is mentioned are three mohas. But remember, these three mohas, that is the moha which is associated with the two dosa chitta and the two mohas which are associated with the two moha chitta. These moha we removed from the previous term, from Asava Sampayutta Dhamma. They have been brought in to this section, the Asava Vipayutta Dhamma, because those Dhammas, that moha does not have another Asava for it to be associated with. That is why these three sentences have been brought in here. Chatusu Bhumisu Kusalam, wholesome states of the four planes of existence. Chatusu Bhumisu Vipako, resultants of the four planes of existence. Tisu Bhumisu Kiriya Vyakataṃ, the functional indeterminates of the three planes of existence. Rupancha and matter, Nibbānancha and the state of final deliverance. Ime Dhamma Āsava Vipayutta. These are the states dissociated from intoxicants. So the analytical states are the 28 Rupa, matter, 21 Kusala, wholesome states, 36 resultants, Vipaka, 20 Kriya, functionals, 38 Chetasika, mental factors. And Moha, ignorance, arising together with the two dosa chitta and the two moha chitta. And finally, Nibbana. So these Dhammas are classified under all five aggregates. But again, remember, Nibbana is outside the scope of aggregates. They are classified under 12 bases. This should be 12, not 2. 18 elements and 2 noble, sorry, not 2. This has to be 4 noble truths. Yes, it should be 4 noble. Yeah, 4 noble truths. Why is that? Now we have the mundane Dhammas. All the mundane Dhammas are here. Sorry, give me a second. Okay, so the Akusala Dhamma are not here. So we don't get Lobha Chetasika. So Samudaya Satcha is not here. We get Dukkha Satcha. We get Magga Satcha and Nirodha Satcha. So this should be 3 noble truths. And again, remember the 4 Magga Chitta and 28 Chetasika, the 4 Phala Chitta and 36 Chetasika, these are outside the scope of noble truths. So let me tell again the noble truths. All the mundane Dhammas, that means the 28 matter, the 17 mundane Kusala, wholesome states, the 32 mundane resultants, Vipaka, the 20 Kriya, and 38 mental factors, And again, the ignorance arising together with the two dosa chitta and the two moha chitta, these are all dukkha satcha. Nibbana is nirodha satcha. The 8 magganga, the 8 path factors are magga satcha. And the remaining 4 magga and 28 chetasika, the 4 phala and the 36 chetasika, these are outside the scope of noble truths. Now we move on to the fourth dukkha, fourth dukkha, first term. Āsavagocchakaṃ states there are both intoxicants and have intoxicants. The Nikkepa summary section. Katame Dhamma Āsava Cheva Sāsavacha, which are the states that are both intoxicants and have intoxicants. Teyeva Āsava, those same intoxicants. Āsava Cheva Sāsavacha. These are the states that are both intoxicants and have intoxicants. So what does this mean? We are looking now for the Dhammas that are Āsava. On one hand, they are Āsava. On the other hand, they are Sāsava. That means they can become an object for these Āsavas. So what are the Āsavas? Lobha, Ditthi and Moha. These Dhammas are Āsavas and they also can be objects for the Āsavas. So therefore, the analytical states here are the 3 mental factors corresponding to the 4 Āsavas. Now the Atthakatha description. Katame Dhamma Āsava Cheva Sāsavacha. And here again, it is the exact same description given under the Nikkepa Khandam because it's self-explanatory. There's nothing that needs to be further elaborated here. So those intoxicants, Teva Āsava, Āsava Cheva Sāsavacha. These are the states that are both intoxicants and have intoxicants. So here we get the 3 mental factors, lobha, greed, ditthi, wrong view, and moha, ignorance. And these are classified under one aggregate khandha, Saṅkhāra khandha, one base, Dhammayatana, one element, Dhammadhatu, and 2 noble truths. Lobha is samudaya satcha, ditthi and moha are dukkha satcha. Now the next term, Sāsava Cheva Dhamma Nocha Āsava, states that have intoxicants but are not intoxicants. The Nikkepa Khandam, summary section. Katame Dhamma Sāsava Cheva Nocha Āsava, which are the states that have intoxicants but are not intoxicants. Tehi Dhammehi Ye Dhamma Sāsava, among those states, whatever states that have intoxicants, Te Dhamma Tapetva, excluding those states, intoxicants. Avasesa Sāsava Kusala Akusala Abhyakata Dhamma, the coexistent, wholesome, unwholesome, indeterminate states, Kāmāvachara, Rūpāvachara, Arūpāvachara, belonging to the sense sphere, fine material sphere, immaterial sphere. Rūpakkhando, Peyalan, Vijñānakkhandho, the 5 aggregates. So now what has happened here? Now we take the Sāsava Dhammas and here they said they should be Sāsava, but they should not be Āsava Dhamma. So we take the Sāsava Dhamma, that means the Dhammas that can be taken as objects by the Āsava Dhamma. However, they should not be Āsavas. So that is why the first 2 lines are given, excluding the Āsavas, the states that have intoxicants, the Sāsava Dhamma. So what we get here, we remove the intoxicants, the lobha, ditthi and moha from the remaining co-intoxicant states, which are the remaining laukika or remaining mundane states. And these belong to the 5 aggregates. Ime Dhamma Sāsava Cheva Nocha Āsava. These are the states that have intoxicants but are not intoxicants. Now the Atthasālinī description. Katamedamma sāsava cheva nocha asava, which are the states that have intoxicants but are not intoxicants. Tapetva asave, excluding the intoxicants. Now here it's very clear. Avasesang akusala, the remaining unwholesome states. Tisubhumisu kusala, wholesome states of the three planes of existence. Tisubhumisu vipako, resultants of the three planes of existence. Tisubhumisu kiryabhyakata, functional indeterminates of the three planes of existence. So basically all the mundane dhammas, excluding the intoxicants. Sabbancha rupang and all matter. Ime dhamma sāsava, cheva nocha asava. These are the states that have intoxicants but are not intoxicants. So here we get 28 rupa matter. Now we said that we are taking only the mundane states. The 17 mundane wholesome consciousness, kusala, 12 akusala unwholesomes, 32 mundane resultants, vipaka, and 20 kriya functionals. 49 mental factors excluding lobha, ditthi and moha. So these dhammas are classified under 5 aggregates, 12 bases, 18 elements, and 1 noble truth. And that is dukkha satcha. Here we don't have lobha, therefore samudaya satcha doesn't come here. Now there is a further paragraph in the Atthasālinī. Āsavagocchakaṃ states that are not intoxicants. Navatabba should not be stated as Āsavagocchakaṃ sāsavacha tipi sāsavacheva nocha āsava tipi. States that have intoxicants but are not intoxicants, or as states that have intoxicants but are not intoxicants. So what does that mean? Now, if you look closely at the two terms, āsavacheva sāsavacha, sāsavacheva nocha āsava. In both of these terms, the word sāsava is there. That means we are talking only about sāsava dhamma. That is why Āsavagocchakaṃ cannot be considered under these two terms. That is why they say Āsavagocchakaṃ navatabba should not be stated as either of these two terms because they are not relevant. And now we come to the next dukkha, the fifth one. The first term, Āsava chevadhamma āsava sampayutta cha, states that are both intoxicants and associated with intoxicants. The Nikkepa and the summary description. Katamedhamma āsava cheva āsava sampayutta cha, which are the states that are both intoxicants and associated with intoxicants. Kāmasavo avijjāsavena āsavo cheva āsava sampayutto cha. The intoxicant of sensual desire, together with the ignorance intoxicant, is both an intoxicant and associated with intoxicants. So what does that mean? If you take kāmasava, kāmasava is the intoxicant of sensual desire. This is a āsava dhamma, and it is also an āsava sampayutta dhamma because it is associated with avijjāsava, that is moha cetasika. Because both of these arise with together with the lobha chitta. So lobha chitta has both avijja, and when it comes to the sensual desire, that is lobha. So avijja and lobha arises together. Avijjāsavo kāmasavena āsavo cheva āsava sampayutto cha. Now here we are talking about the reverse. The intoxicant of ignorance together with the intoxicant of sensual desire is both an intoxicant and associated with intoxicants. So now we are talking about avijjāsava. It is an intoxicant and it is associated with intoxicants. In other words, kāmasava. Bhavāsavo avijjāsavena āsavo cheva āsava sampayutto cha. The intoxicant of attachment to existence, together with the intoxicant of ignorance, is both an intoxicant and associated with intoxicants. So now we are talking about Bhavāsava. Bhavāsava again arises in the Lobha Chitta and it has Avijjāsava, Moha, as a associated Chetasika. Now the next one is the vice versa. Avijjāsavo bhavāsavena āsavo cheva āsava sampayutto cha. The intoxicant of ignorance, together with the intoxicant of attachment to existence, is both an intoxicant and associated with intoxicants. Ditthāsavo avijjāsavena āsavo cheva āsava sampayutto cha. The intoxicant of wrong view, together with the intoxicant of ignorance, is both an intoxicant and associated with intoxicants. Ditti. Ditti is associated with avijjāsava. Therefore, ditti is not only an asava, it is also associated with asavas. It's asava sampayutta. Avijjāsavo ditthāsavena āsavo cheva āsava sampayutto cha. The intoxicant of ignorance, together with the intoxicant of wrong view, is both an intoxicant and associated with intoxicants. Ime dhamma āsavā cheva āsava sampayutta cha. These are the states that are both intoxicants and associated with intoxicants. And now the commentary chapter, Atthakatha Katame Dhamma Āsava Cheva Āsava Sampayutta cha, which are the states that are both intoxicants and associated with intoxicants. Yatta dve thayo āsava ekato uppajjanti, where 2 or 3 intoxicants arise together. Ime dhamma āsava cheva āsava sampayutta cha. These are the states that are both intoxicants and associated with intoxicants. So it's very clear. With one sentence, it summarized all that was mentioned in the Nikkepa Khanda. So what does it mean to have 2 or 3 intoxicants arising together? Now let's go through the 12 akusala dhamma. The first 8, the 8 lobha chitta. If you take the ditthigata sampayutta lobha chitta, the 4 ditthigata sahagata lobha chitta, those will have moha, lobha and ditti. So that is an instance where 3 intoxicants arise together. So they become Āsava sampayutta dhamma because they act as kind of like colleagues for each other. So one asava becomes the other asava sampayutta dhamma. Then if you take the ditthigata vippayutta chitta, the 4 lobha sahakata ditthigata vippayutta chitta, we get moha and lobha only. That is an instance where 2 intoxicants arise. So the lobha and moha will be asava sampayutta for each other. Next, look at the 2 moha chitta. So the 2 dosa chitta and the 2 moha chitta. They have only one asava, only moha. Therefore, they are not Āsava sampayutta dhamma because it's an instance where only one intoxicant arises. So here, this sentence where 2 or 3 intoxicants arise pertains only to the 8 lobha mula chitta. Now there's a description in the Atthasālinī in where 2 or 3 intoxicants arise together, the co-origin of the intoxicants in 3 ways should be understood. Therein, the intoxicant of sensual desire, that is kāmasava, arises in one state of consciousness in 2 ways. By virtue of ignorance, in the 4 dissociated from views, the ditthikata vipayutta chitta, and together with the intoxicant of views and of ignorance, in those associated with views, ditthikata sampayutta. The intoxicant of attachment to existence, the bhavasava, arises in one state of consciousness in one way, together with the intoxicant of ignorance in the 4 dissociated from views. So this is a further explanation to what was mentioned before. So when you take the kāmasava can be associated with avijjāsava in the 4 ditthigata vipayutta chitta. And kāmasava is associated with avijjāsava and ditthāsava in the 4 chitta that are associated with views. So ditthigata sampayutta lobha chitta. Then bhavasava exists only with avijjāsava, because you don't find bhavasava coexisting with ditti. So it's only the ditti vipayutta chitta that will have bhavasava. And now I want to draw your attention to another point which some of you may have already noticed. Here, now we mentioned that sometimes kāmasava is associated with avijjāsava and ditthāsava in the 4 ditthikata sampayutta chitta. But it is not mentioned here. So here we don't have a sentence which says kāmasavo, ditthāsavena āsavo, and so on, and vice versa. Ditthāsavo, kāmasavena āsavo, and so on. Why do you think it's not mentioned here? That is because if those 2 sentences were brought here, then we would get the impression that kāmasava is always associated with ditti. Therefore, it is not mentioned here. But that is why in the commentary, it was mentioned clearly that there is an instance where kāmasava is associated with ditti, that is in the 4 chitta that are associated with views. But it is not mentioned in the Nikkepa Khanda because it is only partial. It's not always there. It is only in some instances. So the analytical states that we get under Āsava, Chivadhamma, Āsava sampayuttacha are lobha, greed, ditti, wrong view, moha, ignorance. Excluding the ignorance, moha arising together with the 2 dosa chitta and the 2 moha chitta. So these are classified under 1 aggregate sankhara khandha, 1 base dhammayatana, 1 element dhammadhatu, and 2 noble truths ariya satcha. The ditti and moha is classified under dukkha satcha, and lobha is samudaya satcha. Now we move on to the next term, Āsava sampayutta chevadhamma nocha āsava, states that are associated with intoxicants but are not intoxicants. The Nikkepa Khanda, summary description. Khatame dhamma āsava sampayutta cheva nocha āsava, which are the states that are associated with intoxicants but are not intoxicants. Tehi dhammehi ye dhamma sampayutta, among those states, whatever states that are associated with intoxicants, te dhamma tapetva, excluding those states, that means the intoxicants. Vedanakkhandho peyalang viññānakkhandho, feeling, perception, mental formations, consciousness, aggregates. Ime dhamma āsava sampayutta cheva nocha āsava. These are the states that are associated with intoxicants but are not intoxicants. So now we need to think of the Dhammas that are Āsava Sampayutta. And among them, we need to deduct the Āsavas. So, we take all the Āsava Dhamma and remove the Āsavas from them. So, what do we get? We get, now because Moha is there, we get all 12 Akusala Chitta. And we get the Chetasika that arise together with them. But because we are removing the Asavas, we need to deduct 3. Moha, Ditti, and Lobha needs to be removed. So we get 24 Chetasika. And now the Atthasālinī commentary chapter description. Katame Dhamma Āsava Sampayutta Cheva Nocha Āsava, which are the states that are associated with intoxicants but are not intoxicants. Tapetva Āsave, excluding the intoxicants. Avasesaṃ Akusalam, the remaining unwholesome states. Ime Dhamma Āsava Sampayutta Cheva Nocha Āsava. These are the states that are associated with intoxicants but are not intoxicants. Now there is a further description here. Āsavavipayutta Dhamma states that are not states that are dissociated from intoxicants. Navatabba should not be stated as Āsava Cheva Āsava Sampayutta Chatipi, Āsava Sampayutta Cheva Nocha Āsava Tipi. States that are both intoxicants and associated with intoxicants, or states that are associated with intoxicants but are not intoxicants. Now let's try and understand this. Now first we will look at our two terms. And both these terms has the word Āsava Sampayutta. In one, we are talking about the Dhammas that are both Āsavas and Āsava Sampayutta. In the second term, we are talking about the Dhammas that are Āsava Sampayutta but are not Āsavas. So, in summary, both the terms are speaking about Āsava Sampayutta Dhamma. So, for that reason, if you look at the Āsava Vipayutta Dhamma, none of them can be included under these two terms. That is why the Āsava Vipayutta Dhamma, the states that are dissociated from intoxicants, cannot be stated under these two terms. So the analytical states are the 12 akusala unwholesome consciousness together with 24 mental factors excluding lobha, ditti and moha. So these are classified under 4 aggregates, 2 bases, 2 elements and 1 noble truth. Why only 1 noble truth? We get only dukkha satcha because lobha has been excluded here. We do not get samudaya satcha. And now we come to the final dukkha. The first term, Āsava Vipayutta Kopana Dhamma Sāsavapi, states that are dissociated from intoxicants but have intoxicants. The Nikkepa Khandam summary description. Katame Dhamma Āsava Vipayutta Sāsava, which are the states that are dissociated from intoxicants but have intoxicants. Tehi Dhammehi Ye Dhamma Vipayutta. Whatever states that are dissociated from those states. Sāsava Kusala Bhyakata Dhamma. The co-intoxicant, wholesome, kusala, unwholesome, akusala, indeterminate states, abhyakata, belonging to kāmāvachara, rūpāvachara, arūpāvachara, sense sphere, fine material and immaterial spheres. Rupa Kando, Peyala, Vijnana Kando, the 5 aggregates. Ime Dhamma, Āsava Vipayutta Sāsava. These are the states that are dissociated from intoxicants but have intoxicants. And now the commentary chapter Atthasālinī. Katame Dhamma Āsava Vipayutta Sāsava, which are the states that are dissociated from intoxicants but have intoxicants. Dvisu domanassa sahagatesu chittuppadesu uppanno moho. Ignorance arising together with the two risings of consciousness accompanied by displeasure. Vichikicha sahagato moho, ignorance accompanied by doubt. Uddachya sahagato moho, ignorance accompanied by restlessness. Tisu bhumisu kusalang, wholesome states of the three planes of existence. Tisu bhumisu vipako, resultants of the three planes of existence. Functional, tisu bhumisu kiriya bhyakataṃ, functional indeterminates of the three planes of existence. Sabbancha rupam, and all matter. Ime dhamma āsava sampayutta sāsava. These are the states that are dissociated from intoxicants but have intoxicants. Now, let's try to mentally break it down. We are talking about the dhammas that are āsava vipayutta. So let's see what are āsava vipayutta. Āsava vipayutta means they are the dhammas that do not coexist with asavas. That means now āsava sampayutta dhamma were the 12 akusalas together with the 27 chetasika, but excluding the moha of the two dosa chitta and the two moha chitta. So that's āsava vipayutta dhamma. Āsava sampayutta dhamma. So what is āsava vipayutta? Excluding those 12 akusala chitta, the remaining chitta. So 89 minus 12, those remaining chittas are āsava vipayutta. And in terms of chetasika, we get 38 chetasika, and we cannot forget the moha that we removed from the āsava sampayutta. The moha that arises together with the two dosa chitta and the two moha chitta. So that is also āsava vipayutta. Then we get all rupa and we get nibbana. Now that is āsava vipayutta. But there is another catch here. Among these āsava vipayutta dhamma, we have to take only the sāsava dhamma. So sāsava means the dhammas that can be taken as objects, as ārammana by these āsavas. So now we have to pick only the mundane dhammas. So we will remove all the supramundane things from here, which are the 4 magga, the 4 phala, the 36 chetasika that arise together with them, and nibbana. And what we are left with are the dhammas that will come under this term. And that is what is mentioned here. So now coming to the analytical states of āsava vipayutta kopanadhamma sāsavapi, we get 28 rupa matter, and now we get only the mundane dhammas, right? So we get only 17 wholesome kusala, 32 resultants vipaka, 20 kriya functionals, and 38 mental factors. And of course, we need to remember the ignorance, moha, that arises together with the two dosa chitta and the two moha chitta. So these dhammas are classified under 5 aggregates, 2 bases, 18 elements, and 1 noble truth, which is dukkha satcha.
12 bases, right?
Sorry. Yes, 12 bases, because we have all the categories. Yes, 12 bases. And now we come to the final term of the final dukkha. Āsava vipayutta kopanadhamma anāsavapi, states that are dissociated from intoxicants and do not have intoxicants. The summary section, Nikepa Khanda. Katame dhamma āsava vipayutta anāsava, which are the states that are dissociated from intoxicants and do not have intoxicants. Aparyapanna magga cha magga phalāni cha, the paths that are unincluded and the fruits of the paths. Asankatacha dhatu, and the unconditioned element. Ime dhamma āsava vipayutta anāsava. So here We are talking about the Āsava Vippayutta Dhamma, which at the same time are Anāsava. That means they do not act as Ārambana to the Āsavas. So what we get are all the Lokuttara Dhammas. And the commentary chapter, Atthasālinī description, Katame Dhamma Āsava Vippayutta Anāsava, which are the states that are dissociated from intoxicants and do not have intoxicants. Chattaro Magga Apariyapanna, Chattaricha Samanya Phalani, the four paths that are unincluded, and the four fruits of the life of a recluse. Nibbanancha, and the state of final deliverance. Ime Dhamma Āsava Vippayutta Anāsava. These are the states that are dissociated from intoxicants and do not have intoxicants. So the analytical states here are the 8 supramundane consciousness, the 4 Magga and the 4 Phala, together with the 36 Chetasika and Nibbana. So these Dhammas are classified under 4 aggregates. Now again, Nibbana is here. So Nibbana is outside the scope of aggregates. 2 bases, 2 elements, and 2 noble truths. And the 8 path factors, the Magganga are Magga Satcha. Nibbana is Nirodha Satcha. And the remaining 4 Magga and 28 Chetasika, the 4 Phala and 36 Chetasika, these are outside the scope of the 4 noble truths. And there is a further section here, Āsava Sampayutta Dhamma, states associated with intoxicants. Navatthabha should not be stated as Āsava Vippayutta Sāsavatipi, Āsava Vippayutta Anāsavatipi, states that are dissociated from intoxicants but have intoxicants, or as states that are dissociated from intoxicants and do not have intoxicants. So again, we need to look at the 2 terms. Both these 2 terms speak about Āsava Vippayutta Dhamma. Therefore, the Āsava Sampayutta Dhamma cannot be classified under any of these 2 terms, and that is why it is clearly mentioned that the Āsava Sampayutta Dhamma should not be stated as either of these 2 terms. So with that, we come to the end of today's lesson. Brother Chechi, do we have time for questions?
Maybe 5 minutes if there's any.
Okay, so if you have any questions, you can ask them now. Okay, Jordi is raising his hand. Yes, Jordi. We can't hear you.
Teruan, Teruan Saranai,
Tirvan
Doctor.
Sarnai.
So I'll try to read about the next lesson, that is the Samyojana Gochaka. And the thing is, I still have not understood yet about this. Although we have already met them in the Abhidhammatthasaṅgaha chapter, but why is especially this Dhammasaṅgaṇī mention that kind of 10 samyojana that is different than the sutta way? Like, what is the reason?
Do you mean to say that the classification of the Sangyojanas in the Abhidhamma is different to that of the classification in the suttas?
Yes, and why, Doctor?
Actually, I also had the same question, and I still haven't found an answer to it.
Okay. Oh.
But it is. I think we shouldn't really split hairs about it. So basically, when you talk about the Sangyojanas are the Dhammas that basically are the ones that how they're explained is how they are eliminated. So when it comes to the Sotapanna, these are the fetters, right? So the Sotapanna, you eliminate the three fetters. Likewise, then Sakadagami, Kamaraga, Patika is thinned out. Then by Anagami, they will completely eradicate the Kama, Raga, and Patiga. Then finally, the last five Sangyojana will be eliminated when it comes to the Arihant. So this is kind of the stepwise manner that these fetters are being eliminated when a person progresses on the path. So in the suttas, it's what is it? What was it? There's an additional Sangyojana brought in. What is it? Kukucha. I think, is it Kukucha? I can't remember. Not
For
Kukucha.
the Abhidhamma part or the Sutta
No,
part?
in Suttanta. In Suttanta, another additional one is brought, and it's mentioned that it's eradicated by the Sotapanna, the stream enterer. But it is not described in the Abhidhamma. So there is a bit of a conflict there, but why it is so, it's not very clear. When we are talking about the Sangyojanas, I'll try to dig in further and see if I can give you an answer for that question.
Right. Acharya. Yes, actually, because the one, if I'm not mistaken, the one in the Sutanta way is as Doctor mentioned before, that they are arranged so that it is according to the attainment and discarding that kind of samyojana, right? So for example, Sotapanna, they will discard Sakayaditi, Silabata, Vichikicha, like that, right? But in
Yes.
Abhidhamma, I see, especially the next chapter, because the arrangement is not according to the way it is discarded. And for example, Mana Samyojana actually is number 3 in here. Like we have Kamaraga, Patiga, Mana, Dithi, Vichikicha. So like Vichikicha should be the first, right, to be discarded in here. And Dithi also, but rather than Vichikicha and Dithi, they put I'm sorry, I mean Bande Sariputta or Buddha put the Kamaraga first, like that. Yeah.
Yeah, so in the Abhidhamma, it's listed as Paramattha Dhamma, isn't it? It's listed as Paramattha Dhamma rather than the order that they are eliminated. Whereas in the suttas, they say, okay, these three are eliminated first and then subsequently these dhammas.
Right.
However, even in the Abhidhamma, we did talk about this when we were speaking of the Dasanatika. If you remember, the Dasanatika clearly mentions that Kamachanda, Vichikicha, Sakayaditi is eliminated by the Dasanena Pahatabba Dhamma. They are the Dasanena Pahatabba Dhamma, if you remember. And also the what do you call, the strength of the remaining akusala are reduced to such an extent that this individual will not be born in a hell realm again. So those are the dhammas that are eliminated by dasanena pahatabba dhamma. Sorry, by insight. So those are the dasanena pahatabba dhamma. So even, I mean, that was mentioned in that tika, although here it is not given in that particular order. They're just listing out
Yes.
the dhammas.
Right. Okay, so maybe that is the question for another day then,
Yes,
Doctor.
that's right.
Thank you very much, Doctor.
Okay. Right. So since there are no more questions, we'll conclude our lesson. And the next lesson will be on the 19th of July. I hope Brother Jeji, it's all right.
It's okay. OK，那我们呢，下一个课呢，就是下个星期天我们继续上课。
Okay, and it's now time to share merits. I would like all of you to join me. Ākāsattā ca bummattā devānāgā mahiddhikā puñyantaṃ anumoditvā ciran rakkantu sāsanaṃ ciran rakkantu desanaṃ ciran rakkantu mam paraṃ. Idam me ñātīnaṃ hotu sukhitā hontu ñātayo. Idam me ñātīnaṃ hotu sukhitā hontu ñātayo.
Hontunya
Idam me
idam
ñātīnaṃ
tinang
hotu
hotu
sukhitā
kita
hontu ñātayo.
hontunya tayo.
Imina punya kammena mame bala samagamo satan samagamo hotu yava nibbana pattiya. Idam me punyang āsavagocchakaṃ vahang hotu. Idam me punyang nibbanassa paccayo hotu. Mama punya bhagang sabba sattanang bhajemi te sabbe me samang punya bhagang labantu. Buddha Sāsanang Chirantittatu, Buddha Sāsanang Chirantittatu, Buddha Sāsanang Chirantittatu, Sadhu, Sadhu, Sadhu.
Thank you very much, Doctor. Sadhu, sadhu, sadhu.
Thank you very much, Doctor. Sadhu, sadhu, sadhu.
Thank you, Doctor. Satu, satu, satu.